you're telling me that there are places in the Old Testament where the name Yahweh equals Trinity. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you let me arrive at it by looking at the entirety of the Old Testament, absolutely. Yahweh is not a singular person. Isaiah 54:5.
How do you, what is your method of determining which person is being referred to as Yahweh at any given
Depends on
moment?
the context. I'd have to look at the context to see, because, for example, in Genesis 19, the Yahweh on earth who's judging Sodom and Gomorrah wouldn't be the Yahweh in heaven who sent down the fire, the sulfur.
If here we're disagreeing on the main foundational premise on each of our theology, because I'm telling you, along with Trinitarian scholar Mary Harris, that God, the title God, never equals Trinity. For instance, when we read in Genesis 1, it says, "In the beginning, God created." We should never read that in the beginning, the Trinity created. But you agree that if what I'm saying is true, it would greatly affect the way that we read the Bible. Would you agree with that?
I don't know what you mean by if I agree. That if I agree with you, that,
for instance, Genesis 1, there's a huge difference between saying in the beginning God created, or in the beginning the Father created, and saying in the beginning the Trinity created, right? Isn't that a huge difference?
Yeah. So do you want me to address Genesis 1?
No, I don't. I want to build.
So what do you want me to address? The way we interpret the Old Testament is in light of the New Testament. I'm a New Testament Christian. I don't ignore the New Testament exegesis and explication of the Old Testament. So if you're asking me how I deal with Genesis 1, are you asking me as a Christian who believes the New Testament? Then clearly in Genesis 1, the Elohim there, though doesn't include the Spirit, not because he's not God, because in Genesis 1:2, the Spirit is distinguished from God. Most definitely Elohim would have to include the person who becomes the man Christ Jesus. So I can address these points. That's why I'm saying your approach to John 1, personification, is not going to help your case. So what do you want me to do exactly?
What I can say is that what is now debatable is whether or not God ever equals Trinity. I'm telling you. I was
going to address that, but you don't let me address it.
And now let's look at the creation of Genesis 1:1-3.
Okay, buddy, can you let me show you how I prove that Yahweh does not mean a single person, but it does refer to Trinity? Can we look at Isaiah 54:5? I'm trying to be respectful because I don't want you to say I'm cutting you off and therefore make an excuse. I don't want you to leave. I want us to have a conversation. In Isaiah 54:5, here you're going to see that the God of all the earth, whose name is Yahweh of hosts, is a plural God because of the participles used. And then I'll confirm it from Isaiah and Genesis that this Yahweh is not a singular person, but we got to get to it first.
For thy maker is thine husband, the Lord of hosts is his name, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the God of the whole earth shall he be called.
Now, I sent you a link. I want everyone to look at the link. We're going to open it. You're going to see that the participles, thy maker, thy husband, they're plural. Thy makers are your husbands, plural. So if you show the word makers, it's the plural of asa. It is a plural participle. It's literally your makers. And then when you look at the word husband, it's the plural of Baal. Your husbands are your makers. And yet the husbands who are their makers is the one Yahweh, the God of all the earth. How does your position account for the fact that here, and this is not just one, there's others too, Ecclesiastes 12:1, and so on and so forth, which we'll look at. How do you account for the fact that Yahweh God is now identified with plural participles, making him creators, husbands, and makers? How do you account for that as a Unitarian?
I'm not an expert in Hebrew, so I would have to investigate it further.
Well, he just showed you. In fact, here, Ecclesiastes 12:1 in Young's literal translation, you don't even need to have the Hebrew. Now, why is this interesting? Because in Genesis 1:1, it says, bara, singular, Elohim, bara, created. And yet here you have the plural form of bara, speaking of God as creators, thy creators. And here you're going to see that's how Young literal translation renders it. So you don't even need the Hebrew. I'm going to bring the Hebrew.
Remember also thy creators, capital C. Young actually put a capital C there.
Creators.
In the days of thy youth, while that the evil days come not, nor the years have arrived, that thou sayest, I have no pleasure in them.
Okay, so creators, why is it plural? Because now I gave him the link, interlinear. You're going to see it's the plural form of bara. It's plural for bara. It's creators, not creator. Why is the one God called creators, husbands, makers?
You go to one single translation as if that's...
Show him the Hebrew. It's right there. What
I
is
should,
it plural?
but which version of the Bible translates it like that?
They don't
Besides
need
the one, beside okay, they don't need to. Okay, I'm just telling you that I
Okay.
told you I'm not an expert in Hebrew.
Okay, but you said you
I
wanted me to
told
prove
you
this from the Hebrew Bible, right?
I told you I would have to investigate it further, but I'm telling you, it seems to be a huge mark against what you're saying when no translation translates it the way that you're translating it.
Do you know why they don't? It's very easy. So that people don't think that the plural means there are multiple gods. They're not multiple gods. That's the whole
Why
point of
would they
being
think
Trinitarian.
that? Why would they
Because
think
people
that?
like you would come and argue the way you do because of people like you.
Okay, that's conjecture. And
Okay.
have
You want
have
to
you
stay with
have you?
exegesis, or we're going to go off topic? Because I've been trying to
No,
exegete and going into
I
sermons.
no, I hear your point, but I made my point that
Okay.
not a single person interprets it like that. You provided one for Ecclesiastes, but then you're saying the reason they don't do it, you made a conjectural assertion
Okay,
about why they
can you
don't do
deny
it,
it's
but you have
plural?
no evidence.
Okay.
What's that?
Did you see it was plural though? Did you deny? Okay,
Yes.
he showed you
Yeah.
the Hebrew. It says plural of bara. So if it's plural of bara singular, what would that make
Yeah.
it? If it's
So,
plural,
so is your what you're saying there is that anytime we see something like a noun that's plural, it refers to multiple persons? Is that what you're saying?
well, the argument of the Unitarian is there are thousands of cases where the singular pronouns are used for God, proving he's one person. When we flip it on you, say, well, hold on, wait. There are several occasions where plurals are used to show that singular pronouns only prove he's one God, not one person. Now you're saying, are you saying that plural participles and verbs and adjectives prove they're multiple persons? That's the counter your objection, because your argument is that since
No,
they're
that's
singular
not my argument.
well, that's what Unitarians argue. You've never used that argument because I don't follow
No,
you.
I don't. No, I don't
Okay.
use that argument.
Okay, that's
That's not
fine.
the argument I'm making.
Okay.
Sure.
So now in
Mhm.
Genesis 1, the Elohim there that creates, was he alone or was the Spirit with him?
Who's he?
The Elohim, because I'm going to say he for convenience sake.
The Elohim. But
Because
who is he? Are
Elohim,
we talking about the Elohim? You mean the Trinity?
no, not in that case. It would be Father and Son, according to John 1.
Okay. So
But-
we're at Genesis 1, right?
Yes, verse 2, was the Spirit with Elohim?
Which I mean, I'm not sure. What is your point that you're asking?
You went to Genesis 1, man. I'm following your lead. I'm letting you lead, and I'm following your lead. You went to Genesis 1, and you asked me about, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and earth, and is that the Trinity? Well, I'm going to show you that Elohim there, if we want to take it as the Father, as you do, not me, because I interpret Old Testament light of the New Testament. Elohim there, even if you take it to be the Father, he is not alone. There, the Spirit is with him, creating with him. Because of verse 2.
Yeah, I don't deny that the Spirit's there. No, of course.
So you agree the Spirit is there creating?
God creates through the Spirit. Well, it
you
doesn't
agree
really
with
say that anyways. It says that the Spirit of
does.
God moved. It says the
Uh-oh.
Spirit of God moved upon the
I'll
face
get
of the
there.
waters.
I'll prove
That's fine.
to you. No,
But I don't. Then you're arguing. I'm just telling you that I don't disagree that the Spirit took part in creation. God
So you
created through the
believe
Holy
that?
Spirit.
You do believe that? Okay, so I don't need to establish God and the Spirit created.
Yes. Well,
Now, you
okay.
just proved it. You just
Well,
proved
hold on. I want to because you say God and the Spirit. Is God the
Yes.
Trinity, or is God just one
I
person?
thought I just made it clear. I'm going to repeat it again. In this particular context, if I read in light of the New Testament, Elohim is the Father and the Son.
Okay. So
But I'm
let's look
ignoring
at
the New
Gen.
Testament.
Yeah.
Forget the New Testament. I'm going to go with you. This is the Father. So the Father and the Spirit, you admit, created.
Yes.
You just admit the Spirit is a person that the Father talks to, because in Genesis 1:26, he's talking to the Spirit.
What's that?
In Genesis 1:26,
We're not
when he
there
says,
yet.
let us
Though.
make what?
We're not there yet. That's a completely
are.
different.
No,
we're not.
it's
We're
Genesis
talking
1.
about Genesis 1:1-3. That's what I said. But
Okay,
you want to
keep
jump.
reading,
You want to
please. Don't
jump to
stop.
Genesis 1:26. That's not how
Because it's part of the
exegesis works.
context, dude.
It's not part of the context.
Oh, so 26 is not. It's from the book of Job?
No, at first he's creating the cosmos, and then you're talking about the formation of man.
Yes.
Two different
And who is
things.
he talking to? He says, let us make man in our image.
We're not there yet.
I'll give you 10 minutes to read it, so we're going to wait for you to get there. Go ahead.
You don't jump to another text in another text. That's not
You
how
mean within the
hermeneutics
same
works.
chapter that's about creation? The context, and there were no verses in the Hebrew that's added. The entire context is about creation. I'm in the context. I didn't go outside of the context, and I want to get to the climax of the passage, which is the creation of man.
Dude, that's not how you do hermeneutics. You start with a target text.
Okay, so
And we haven't
What do you want to
established ready to move
I
down
am.
to Genesis 1 to
What do you want to
6.
do, Ben? Because we're not going to get anywhere.
I think you've shown what you needed to show, Sam, and we'll just let the audience decide.